Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the nation right here, TYT Nation, Chip Waldorf here with you on this Monday afternoon. Welcome to the show. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Nice, relaxing weekend because, of course, we have disaster. See, while we were enjoying our nice weekend, Donald Trump went on quite a few incredibly racist rants. So we're going to talk about that. We also have the end of asylum protections for most Central American migrants. So that's a disastrous new turn, disastrous new policy. Then we have Fox and Friends pretty much laughing at the fact that Donald Trump just made a racist attack against 4 sitting congresswomen of color. Then we have Lindsey Graham being Lindsey Graham, which is terrible in itself, talking about the migrants. And then, I should say against migrant detentions. And then, of course, we have Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders versus each other when it comes to health care. So Joe Biden's got a new plan, and shocker, it kind of sucks. So we'll talk about the differences here, what Joe Biden is saying about Medicare for All versus his own plan. So we'll get into that at the end of the show. That should be our last segment. So now, if you could please give us a like and a share. Sharing helps out greatly. Also, some of you might have noticed the video that we put out on, we didn't. The video that I shared with the community on Friday. I believe it was Friday or either that or it was Saturday. I shared it over the weekend. It was a David Pakman video. Kyle Kolinski did another great segment based on that video, talking about how YouTube is trying to stifle independent creators. So now that's really important, obviously, because I do a show on YouTube. I am an independent creator. I'm not part of the mainstream establishment media, which means the algorithm changes that they introduce directly impact me, directly impact my revenue, and my ability to do the show, as well, of course, as Majority Report, Humanist Report, David Dold, Secular Talk, all your favorite creators, right? So now, the reason that we're talking about this is because they have tweaked the algorithm to basically continue to recommend, even if you watch this show, you'll see more stuff recommended from MSNBC, more stuff recommended from CNN or even Fox News. So that's what we have, right? So that's the problem that we're facing here, is that our videos are not being recommended. One of the biggest ways to fight that, of course, is to share. So that's really, really important. That's why I'm asking you guys, if you're not going to get the recommended, and if other people are not going to get recommended videos on our videos, then you'll have to hunt them out manually and share them. And I know it's a pain in the butt, but it really, really helps if you share them manually. Because again, that's really the majority, the biggest thing that I think that you can do to try to fix that, right? Because again, the YouTube algorithm is very much focused on the audience, right? So it won't actually, the videos won't get out to the general public, won't become recommended or get on those feeds, and it never gets in the trending feed, by the way. I've never seen any one of our videos, whether it be just from me or from any other independent creator, ever make it onto the YouTube trending list. Why? Because, well, they don't. They prioritize establishment, old media content. So that, again, that is a huge, huge problem. And sharing helps out. Not only sharing, but of course, Patreon. Patreon.com/TYTNation. And not just us, of course. Patreon helps everybody because this directly affects the channel's ad revenue. So independent media is basically being starved of revenue from YouTube. And so what I want to do, since we don't get any help from TYT memberships, that doesn't affect us. We don't get any investment from the main channel. We don't get any investment from the rest of the network. In fact, what we do is that we pay the network to advertise for us. so that we get the benefits of being in an NCN, which is a multi-channel network, right? We get the benefits of that. We get the benefits of social media advertising, etc. for our show, and various protections of being under that umbrella, but we end up paying in. So very, very important that you guys help us out by going to our Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, or becoming a channel member. Those are the only two big ways to help us out. Of course, there's merchandise, there's Venmo and things like that, or PayPal. We have all that, of course, in the description of in the live stream. Those are the only ways to help the show. So bless your heart if you think that, oh no, guys, I pay $5 to the Young Turks TYT membership. That doesn't go to you? No, unfortunately it doesn't. But, bless your heart if you want to help out the Young Turks, or if you want to help out, David Dole, or if you want to help out Secular Talk, or David Pacman, or, all these other independent channels that you love. Wonderful. Help any of us out. But like a buck or two, or $3, a cup of coffee, whatever, that's what small creators like us need more than anything. And right now we have 122,000 subscribers, which is a pretty big number. But we have about 300 or so patrons. So that, I don't know what percentage that is. I suck at that kind of math. But that's a very, very small amount of the, of my viewership, of my subscriber count. I'd like to boost that up so that I can completely forget about, relying on YouTube advertisements, YouTube funding. I want to separate that so that we can, exist without having to rely on that. So that's why it's important. Patreon.com/TYTNation. Please sign up. A buck or two, a cup of coffee, whatever. That's how much you throw us to, some of that per month. And again, that really, really helps out. And it counts more than you could ever imagine. All right. And hey, you get to say that you save independent progressive media. And that's wonderful. All right. Anyway. So, let's start out with Trump's attacks on AOC. Okay. Now, over the weekend, President Donald Trump showed his unabashed racism in a series of Twitter attacks against fellow American citizens and congresswomen, who include Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and Ayanna Pressley. Those four together are known as the Squad. Now, these are progressive women, women of color, and they're also in their first term, and they've been speaking out against Trump's disastrous immigration policies, going to the border facilities as AOC had, and really trying to help this, these migrants, to help these people that are in these terrible conditions. And they've been using their power to speak out. So now, Trump, he don't like that because when it's exposed that his administration is basically putting these people in disastrous, horrifying conditions for the sake of putting them in horrible conditions. Again, their reasoning is, well, it's a deterrent. We're doing this so that they can this policy, the zero tolerance policy, so we can deter people from coming over the border, so that they can stay home and probably get killed, because we don't care about them. So you stay home and die, or you come here and we're going to lock you up and treat you horribly, like you're subhuman garbage. That's what we're going to do. So now, when you point out how this is a racist policy, Trump gets a little bit triggered, and he goes on Twitter. He says this: "So interesting to see progressive Democrat congresswomen who originally came from countries whose governments are a complete and total catastrophe. The worst, most corrupt and inept anywhere in the world, if they even have a functioning government at all, now loudly and viciously telling the people of the United States, the greatest and most powerful nation on earth, how our government is to be run. Why don't they go back and help fix the totally broken and crime-infested places from which they came, then come back and show us how it's done? These places need your help badly. You can't leave fast enough. I'm sure that Nancy Pelosi would be very happy to quickly work out free travel arrangements. So that's his tweet storm. Gee, I wonder where he got the idea to tell these 4 women to go back to their home countries. I mean, you wouldn't tell a white person to do that, which is funny because there are plenty of white immigrants, but they never do that. It's always, of course, she's AOC, is a Latina. You have Ilhan Omar, who, yes, she is an immigrant. She was born in another country, but she is also a U.S. citizen. She's a black Somali woman. I wonder where he got that idea to tell people to, quote unquote, go home, right? It's almost as if the president might be a racist and thinks that, well, hey, Land, if you look if you're not white, or in my case, orange, well, then you can't possibly be American. No, go back to where you came from. 3 out of those 4 women were born in the United States. Ocasio-Cortez, born in the Bronx. Rashida Tlaib, born and represents Detroit. Holla, Detroit. Presley was born in Cincinnati, raised in Chicago, and now lives in and represents Boston, Massachusetts. Omar, as I said, they fled Somalia when she was a child. They received asylum in the U.S., and she became a citizen in the year 2000 and now represents the state of the city of Minneapolis in Minnesota. Now, it's ironic. I'm sorry, she doesn't represent the city of Minneapolis. No, she represents Minnesota. I don't know why I said that. Okay, but it's ironic that Trump says, oh no, you should go back to where they came from. Go back and fix their corrupt, completely inept, barely functional government. Well, you just explained your own administration. And yes, I have another correction. Yes, now I know why. She does represent both. I don't know why I thought. Whatever. I'm just making all sorts of mistakes today. But as messed up as I've been, I hold no candle to the administration under Donald Trump, which is a complete and utter inept disaster. Now, besides the hilarious projection and irony, you also have this massive racist, xenophobic attack against 4 women of color and congresswomen. So now what happened? The backlash was swift. Elizabeth Warren, she said this, and she's, of course, running for president in 2020. Let's be clear about what this vile comment is, a racist and xenophobic attack on the Democratic congresswomen. This is their country. Regardless of whether or not Trump realizes it, they should be treated with respect. As president, I'll make sure of it, okay? I don't know how that you will do that, Elizabeth Warren, but I appreciate the sentiment. And that goes with every presidential candidate. How are you going to, make sure that these people are treated with respect by people who are on the, conservative side that despise her? And they do so completely on racist, because they're racist. I don't know how you can really do that. And then again, look, the fish rots from the head down. But those people, they're always going to exist in this country. And I guess you can make sure that their voices are not elevated, which they have been under the Trump administration. But anyway, now I have another person you might be aware of, and this is actually a former Republican, Justin Amash. Now, he was a Republican. He decided to quit the Republican Party. He is now an independent, and he said this, quote, "To tell these American citizens, most of whom were born here, to go back to the crime-infested places from which they came is racist and disgusting." Why is it that Justin Amash, somebody that I disagree with on a lot of policy positions, is one of the only people on the conservative side that is actually speaking out against this? I mean, and look, not the only person, of course, right? Funny enough, Geraldo Rivera, right? Now, Geraldo Rivera, he's like, "You are better than this, Donald Trump." No, he's not. He's not better than this. That's who Donald Trump is. And so, I tweeted back to Geraldo, which is a funny sentence to say, that no, he knows, like, that you should know by now that this is who Donald Trump really, really is. He is this guy, and he is a reflection of the Republican base, the Republican Party. And so, if you're a Republican, you don't realize that. Look, you must be super, super ignorant. If you're a Republican and you do realize that, and you're still a Republican, well, then you tacitly approve of this kind of stuff. Now, Representative Pramila Jayapal also weighed in. She said, Donald Trump, you can only hope to be as patriotic as we are. AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, we're born in America. Ilhan Omar and I are proud naturalized citizens, making sure America keeps to our ideals. You are an expert at racism and xenophobia. There you go. Now, that's the overall point here, right? See, Donald Trump only sees color. He has old school, preconceived notions about race, the stereotypes. His stereotype, in his mind, black people have to be either lazy or criminal. They're on welfare. The Muslims are terrorists, unless, of course, there are friends in Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, people who, by the way, literally support terrorism. So I guess, like, he only sees Muslims as terrorists, yet he's friends with people who support terrorism in the form of Mohammed bin Salman. So that's kind of ironic / oops. But also he believes like, Mexicans, obviously they're coming to the border with, drugs and they're there to steal our welfare. That is the fact-free, nuance-free world that Donald Trump lives in. And unfortunately, a lot of his base lives in that same fact-free world. They don't see that people are, obviously, that these stereotypes are incorrect and just absolutely wrong. But no, in his world, every racist stereotype is true. Not only that, but every anti-Semitic stereotype also true. You guys remember when he was talking to a group of Jewish Republicans, he said this, quote, "Is there anyone in this room who doesn't negotiate deals? Probably more than any room I've ever spoken." What is that supposed to mean? Well, it plays to the old anti-Semitic tropes where Jewish people obviously are money grubbing, right? And money grubbing misers are really good at negotiation. No, that is a racist, anti-Semitic stereotype, but that's the world that he lives in. Deeply, deeply racist person. And he believed, thanks to his stereotypes, right? He believes in that he tried to make sure that black people couldn't have rooms in Trump Tower. Well, no black person could afford to live in Trump Tower. So I don't care who you are. I don't care that your record is immaculate, that you have a great job. No, you're a black person. There's no way you could afford to live here. And if you are, then you must be scamming somebody. I mean, how much more do we have to point out? Donald Trump is a complete racist. Now, how did the squad respond, right? This is really important. Now, Rashida Tlaib on Twitter said, "Want a response to a lawless and complete failure of a president?" She's not mincing words here. "He is the crisis. His dangerous ideology is the crisis. He needs to be impeached." So basically, in other words, impeach that MFer. AOC responded, "Mr. President, the country I come from is a country we all swear to is the United States. But given how you've destroyed our border with inhumane camps, all at a benefit to you and the corporations who profit off them," glad she mentions that, "you are absolutely right about the corruption laid at your feet." Ayanna Pressley responded by saying, "This is what racism looks like. We are what democracy looks like. And we are not going anywhere except back to D.C. to fight for the families you marginalize and vilify every day." And Ilhan Omar finally says, "Mr. President, as members of Congress, the only country we swear an oath to is the United States, which is why we're fighting to protect it from the worst, most corrupt and inept president we have ever seen." Oh, I love taking his words and turning them back right on him. So now, one more here. This is from Nancy Pelosi. Now, the reason that I mention her is because she has been attacking the squad, right? She has been deriding them. She went to the New York Times and did an interview with Maureen Dowd and talked about how they have absolutely no influence. Oh, it's only 4 people. Oh, and they live in this social media, whatever. And as you're going to see, of course, some of the subsequent attacks are based on that. So Nancy Pelosi gets special recognition for basically opening up these attacks against AOC. Now, I want to give you her statement anyway. She says, when Donald Trump tells 4 American congresswomen to go back to their countries, he reaffirms his plan to make America great again, has always been about making America white again. Now, that's a true statement. And so that's why it's important, right? She literally did tell the truth there. She also adds, our diversity is our strength and our unity is our power. So now, the reason I've got a problem with this, because like the statement itself is completely true. I agree with it 100%. Oh, but Nancy Pelosi, that's the problem here. You see, Nancy Pelosi is the epitome of the white liberal feminist who is not intersectional. She is not an intersectional feminist. I don't believe she's a racist person, but here's the thing. She loves diversity in her caucus, except when they try to actually do things. And this is not, oh, Nancy Pelosi is a white woman and she's racist against, these 4 women of color. No, that's not the issue here. This is a power thing, right? It's the establishment, it's the old guard versus progressives. And that's what it is. It's against change. Again, her caucus, her party loves people of color, right? As long as they don't actually try to change anything. Kamala Harris loves Kamala Harris. Loves the Congressional Black Caucus. But if you were a member of the squad, if you're a progressive and you're fighting for real change, well, then that's when Nancy Pelosi does not like you. That's when she's not so good about diversity, at least when it comes to diversity of ideas. But again, she set up this attack. Donald Trump also backed her, by the way. This is, when this, because I've been talking about this feud that they've been having going back and forth. Again, progressives versus everyone else versus the establishment, Nancy Pelosi versus the squad. Here's what Donald Trump said about this. Quote, I think Cortez is being very disrespectful to someone who's been there a long time. I deal with Nancy Pelosi a lot, and we go back and forth, and it's fine. But I think that a group of people is being very disrespectful to her. You know what? I don't think Nancy can let that go on. Ocasio-Cortez should treat Nancy Pelosi with respect. You know why Donald Trump defends Nancy Pelosi? It's not because he likes her. No. It's because she's the assistance. He gets, what he wants when he deals with Nancy Pelosi. And what does she do in response? Again, this man has broken laws, right? This man has done criminal obstruction into his, administration, right? And into the investigation into his administration. What does Nancy Pelosi do? She puts out a strongly worded letter. I mean, Donald Trump got a blank check from Nancy Pelosi. $4.6 billion to do whatever they want in the border without any sort of protections for migrant children who are being treated terribly in these camps. What did he do with that money? I think he opened up 3 brand new detention facilities that were formerly prisons, where there were even prison riots because of the conditions were so bad. The Department of Justice doesn't even use those areas anymore. And now, oh look, migrants get to go in there. No oversight, no protections. Nancy Pelosi says, I don't care. We're going to give Trump whatever he wants. But afterwards, we're going to release a very strongly worded letter. What is that going to do? What is that going to do, Nancy? You refuse to hold him accountable. You refuse to impeach the president. leadership. That's not leadership. No, that's the assistance. You are helping Donald Trump. Whereas, of course, AOC and the rest of the squad, those women are the real resistance. That's why Donald Trump prefers Nancy Pelosi to them. Okay. Yeah, okay. That got me a little angry, actually. Who knew? Okay. Moving on. Did she wave her finger? No. She clapped sarcastically. That's what she did. She gets me so mad. Ah. Okay. Anyway. Let's move on. Now, the hosts of Fox and Friends had a nice laugh over a series of tweets aimed at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, and Ilhan Omar. Let's take a look.
President Trump noticing tweeting this morning this. So interesting to see progressive Democrat congresswomen who originally came from countries whose governments are a complete and total catastrophe, the worst, most corrupt and inept anywhere in the world, if they even have a functioning government at all, now loudly and viciously telling the people of the United States, the greatest and most powerful nation on earth, how our government is to be run. Why don't they go back and help fix the totally broken and crime-infested places from which they came? Then come back and show us how it is done. These places need your help badly. You can't leave fast enough. I'm sure that Nancy Pelosi would be very happy to quickly work out free travel arrangements. This tweet that you're just seeing now is clearly going to get, I think, a lot of discussion.
Someone's feeling very comedic today.
That's funny to them. Again, you heard the laughter. They read off these horrible tweets, this racist attack, and like, somebody's feeling very comedic today. It's a joke. Telling American citizens to go back home when they're American citizens, that's comedy. Oh, look at the comedian in chief. Only in the, well, okay, yeah, maybe he is a comedian in chief, only in the fact that Trump is a barely literate reality show clown. That makes people laugh because of how stupid he is. Maybe. Look, again, all these women, American citizens. Omar is the only one that wasn't actually born in the United States, but she's a naturalized citizen since 2000, and they are all representatives. But, again, if that's not gross enough, laughing at this situation, right? The next clip is, let's take a look.
I call the squad the Instagram group, the hashtag squad goals and all that. It seems like a number of the things that they say are those memes that you see on Instagram, these somewhat like defiant and inspirational memes. This is real life. This isn't social media just having fun, trying to, rile people up. This is real life. The words you say have real life consequences. And I think that needs to be taken into consideration.
I think President Trump is making an important point because he's trying to say that the values that built this country, everything from, securing the border and being a nation of laws to, freedom of speech on college campuses, whatever issue you're talking about, a lot of times these are the very issues that the left is trying to obstruct. And he's drawing attention to that and saying, if you don't like what this country stands for, you're not going to change it and take away all these things that Americans value so much. Like, if you don't like it, leave and go set up camp somewhere else, but you're not going to destroy what we have fought so hard and so long to value.
Right. I love how they treat this, right, as, oh, no, they're just having fun online. It's just that, I don't know, infantilization of these strong, young, progressive women. Oh, look, they're so young. I mean, they're doing the Instagram and they're on the social media, and they're not, we shouldn't really take them seriously. I mean, how serious can you take somebody who uses social media? Wait, Donald Trump uses social media all the time. In fact, Donald Trump uses Twitter. And in fact, these are the same people that, by the way, praise Donald Trump for using social media. Well, I mean, it allows him to get around the mainstream corporate media, which, of course, is going to twist his words and all that stuff. So, oh, yeah, no, when Donald Trump uses Twitter, that's a great thing. But if AOC talks about an issue on Instagram while she's like cooking dinner or putting together IKEA furniture, oh no, we can't do that. No, 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 no. Not like that. Not like that. Come on, dude. Really? Now, as far as more serious point here, let's see. So there are Jedediah Bila, which is the woman. Then you also have Todd Pirro and Griff Jenkins. I can't tell the difference. This is like the weekend hosts for Fox and Friends. They're like the Super B team. So I don't know which one's which. But one of them said, the words you say have real life consequences. It's actually Pirro, Todd Pirro. So now he says, like I said, the words you say have real life consequences. Wait a minute. So do they not hear themselves? Do they not understand that what Donald Trump says horrible things on a regular basis, right? And yet he doesn't say that to Trump. He doesn't say, oh, no, what you say, you got to watch it, Trump, because you have some, what you say, real life consequences. You need to watch it and watch what you tweet because you could, rile up some people and have some terrible things that happen because of your rhetoric, because of what you said. No. They're aiming that at AOC. They're aiming this at young women who are trying to change some of the horrible things that we're doing in this country right now. Right now. I mean, it's the hypocrisy. And that's the problem. Now, again, the last thing from Jedediah. She said, if you don't like the way our country is basically, doing what it's doing, and I argue that right now we're mistreating migrants, we're favoring the wealthy, powerful people over regular people, we're constantly bombing brown people and shooting unarmed black people in this country. We have a lot of problems. Oh, if you don't like that, we're trying to fix that, we're trying to fix that. If you don't like it and are trying to fix it, well, then you should leave. Because we like America the way that it is. Don't ever try to change it. Don't ever try to do better because Americans value these things. No, they don't. No, we don't. No, these poor women, they're Americans just like the rest of us, and we're fed up with all the bad things that are going on in our country in our name. And we have enough love for our country and patriotism to actually want to fix these issues and make America great for everyone. For everyone. But people like Jedediah Bila, Todd Pirro, Griff Jenkins, look, you saw, they look like me. I look like them. They don't look like AOC. They don't look like Ilhan Omar. So for them, America's already great. They're already great. There's nothing wrong with this country. They're saying, and if you actually want to make this country better, well, then you should leave because for us, America's already been great. And so that's unfortunately the racist Republican Party, the racist on Fox News. That's them in a nutshell. Everything's great for us. And, well, if you want to change it so that it's actually fair and equitable to everyone else, you shouldn't. You should never change it because then that hurts us, that affects us, and we like being in charge. We like being on top. That is racism. Okay. Okay. So let's go to Lindsey Graham. It's the last one on these statements here. Okay, we'll go to the new policy later. All right. So Senator Lindsey Graham is a pretty loathsome person. We've talked about him before. Never met a war he didn't like. And also seems like he really wants to suck up to President Donald Trump. So now he recently defended these detention facilities even after he went on a tour with Vice President Mike Pence to a facility in Texas. Now, while he was there, he saw the conditions that existed. The conditions were terrible. And yet, nonetheless, he decided, no, I don't think these conditions are terrible. In fact, I like what I saw. And he's going to go on Fox News and he's going to defend it. Let's take a look.
What did I see? A system about to break. I saw brave men and women who are doing an incredible job under difficult circumstances, and I'm going to introduce a resolution next week praising them, the men and women of the Border Patrol and their allies. I saw 900 illegal immigrants that were captured for coming into our country illegally, housed in detention facilities that was meant for 385, so they had to put a tent in the back. What I saw is a bunch of people have been here before, broke the law before, and we're not going to let them go. I don't care if they have to stay in these facilities for 400 days. We're not going to let those men go that I saw. It would be dangerous. And I also saw that 60 different nations are sending people here illegally. We caught people from Iran, Syria, every place in the world. They're coming through our border.
Yeah, they're coming from Bangladesh as well, right?
Bangladesh,
yeah,
yes.
Bangladesh, you've got the Middle East. So
You see that now? Scary Middle Easterners. Oh, look at how many Middle Easterners we got. We got them from Syria. We got them people from Bangladesh. Scary. Oh, these are the people that we're holding in the We're not holding children in there. Oh, no, no, no. You guys are wrong. No, it's not the children. It's the scary Middle Easterners and old men. That's a complete fabrication. I mean, really. So now, of course, aside from all the lies and the BS about, of course, who we're keeping in there, and by the way, it doesn't make sense for people from the Middle East to go down to Central America and try to claim asylum through our border. That's ridiculous. Most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. But as far as, okay, you know who wins when we keep those people in facilities? Private prison corporations. So that's why Lindsey Graham's like, oh, yeah, I'd keep them there for 400 days. Yeah, that's because your donors in the private prison industry make a lot of money off that. Again, remember, it's about, what, $775 per person per day to keep these migrants in these detention centers, right? So a lot of these are run by CoreCivic and Geo Group. I did the story about that. And where's all that money going? They don't have beds. They don't have beds. And the administration has argued that they don't have, or they shouldn't have access to toothpaste or soap. Oh, no. So somebody's making a lot of money here, right? But again, listen to the reasoning as well from Lindsey Graham. I mean, look at all those people. They're in here. I've seen them before. I mean, they broke. Really? You went through and you saw every single person by memory. That, oh, I remember seeing this guy before in this detention. Did you really? He is so full of crap. But no, the reasoning is, well, they broke the law. I mean, they came over the border, they broke the law. Okay, well, for one, seeking asylum is 100% legal. I don't understand how every Republican seems to completely ignore the legality of being able to cross the border to seek asylum. You have to be in the United States. You have to be at a port of entry in order to seek asylum. And it's not just either or, it's and. Either of those work. So that's the legal way of doing this. But everybody seems to ignore that. But of course, I'm going to go to a response of, oh, but Jeff, not everybody's seeking asylum. Some of those people might actually have been crossed the border, right? Okay, well, look, here's the thing is, in order to judge those cases, you need to have judges. And instead of doing that, we have spent more money, without congressional approval, by the way, to build, to just lock more people up, to open up 3 new detention centers in the South. Places that were formerly prisons that were so bad, the conditions were so bad in one of them that there were literal riots. Now we're placing the migrants in there. Look, what the Trump administration, and my overall point is, what they're doing, what Lindsey Graham is defending, is actually unlawful. It is against international law. And they justify that by talking about the scary Middle Easterners and the men that are there. And, oh, no, I've seen these people before. They're criminals, right? And they're illegal. They're criminals. It's absurd. And by the way, not at all true. You know what Mike Pence did when he was there, right? He actually spoke to 2 children. Not grown men. These were children. At one of the facilities. And those children said, look, we walked 2 to 3 months to just reach the United States. We took that, we went that entire distance. We walked that pretty much by ourselves. And now we're here, and yet we're in this detention center, and they're screaming about how we're illegal, and they're mistreating us. I mean, there are women, there are children. Yes, there are also men that are making this journey. And yet you've got horrible people like Lindsey Graham who will then go on Fox News and they'll lie about who these people are. Call them scary Middle Easterners, right? And people that have broken the law. When in reality, it was Donald Trump that made crossing the border more than a misdemeanor, made it a felony, made it a criminal offense, and has led to this horrific treatment and the imprisonment of thousands, tens of thousands of migrants that shouldn't be in prison. Oh, what are you saying? We just let them go? The people that have claimed asylum, around 90% of them go back to court to adjudicate their cases. 90%. So yeah, let them go. Let them go into the care of their families, and then they will return to court so that we can figure out whether or not their asylum claims are actually true. That is the system that we used to do. But under President Trump, unfortunately, we have abandoned that system and we have led to full criminalization because the whole point here is to drive people away, to make sure that they don't come into the country, and for the ones that are already here, to make the stay as horrible as possible because the cruelty is the point. These people in the Trump administration and those who defend it are monsters. Around the nation. Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here, TWT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. All right, so I got a comment here real quick, super chat and a comment. Zarp says, thanks for saying how Pelosi and a lot of establishment Democrats love people of color, only when they fall in line and support them unquestionably. Well, I mean, it's true. Got to call it like I see it, but thank you so much for the super chat. Kira Jed has a slight disagreement with me. Says, I think you're wrong. They want these people to come here. Otherwise, they can't cash in on their misery. No, I think we're both right, actually. So the administration, Trump, and the base, they do not want people here. And it goes to the nativist rhetoric of, and this is the nativist, white supremacist rhetoric coming right out of Tucker Carlson, right? And the people even in Charlottesville. They will not replace us, right? That's how the base feels. Now, is somebody going to cash in on that? Well, obviously, of course. So there is that racist sentiment. There's that nativist sentiment, xenophobia, and that exists. And then there are companies like CoreCivic, Geo Group, that are like, hey, man, look, as long as we're going to have these people here and to try to deter them by placing them in these camps, we're going to make a buck while we can, because that's what we do. We make money off misery. And so, one could say, well, from a corporate profit standpoint, working with the Trump administration and doing what they're doing, that's just smart business for Core Civic and Geo Group. And it's good that we'll profit off of it for as long as we can. So there are those two sides, and if somebody's making money off this misery, and again, the cruelty is the point. All right, so that said, I got to keep going here. We've got more. We've got the asylum rules. So a big immigration story day today. So let's get into that. All right. Now, the Trump administration has just announced that they will end asylum protections for most Central American migrants. Now, this is according to the Washington Post, quoting the Department of Justice and Homeland Security. Now, according to the rule that will be published tomorrow, asylum seekers who pass through another country before reaching the United States and not asking them for asylum will be ineligible for asylum when they reach the southern border. So understand that this will impact just about every migrant from Central America. If you come up through Honduras or El Salvador, Guatemala, and you don't, apply for asylum, for example, say in Mexico, or if you're from Mexico, which that's not what the majority of where the majority of migrants are coming from. They're coming from, again, Central America, but the Trump administration just sees them all as little Mexicos. I mean, it's crazy. So, if you don't apply for asylum somewhere else, well, then we're not going to let you in. I mean, that's crazy. And it's obviously definitely a way to prevent people from those countries, or at least delay them in coming here. Now, there are exceptions. Under the rule, those who have been victims of trafficking have been granted exceptions. It also allows exceptions for migrants passing through countries that have not signed major international refugee treaties, and for migrants that have been denied asylum in the countries they traveled through. So there are some notable exceptions in there, but basically through this legislation, the Trump administration is saying, not our problem. Not our problem. It's somebody else's problem. We're going to make you deal with it because we don't want to take these people. And that's the whole plan. We don't want these people, and that's what they're saying. Now, the Trump administration officials described this as necessary to reduce the burden placed on the U.S. by the growing number of immigrants seeking asylum at the southern border, by allowing agencies to more quickly process cases by weeding out individuals trying to, quote, exploit the asylum protections. So, first of all, we need to reduce the burden onto the U.S. By these immigrants. You know who's more of a burden to the U.S. right now? Billionaires. I know that's a strange... Look, billion, what are you talking about? So, there are people, these corporations that don't pay any taxes, like Amazon, that end up getting a refund. That is way more of a burden on the U.S. system than migrants coming in. I mean, there's no comparison here. So that's a joke, an absolute joke. The other joke here is that, there are people coming in, they're trying to exploit asylum. Really? Is there any proof that a large majority of people are trying to game the system? Maybe one or two, maybe a couple here and there. Sure, of course, human nature, right? But there is this, I guess, myth that, there are very, very large numbers of people that are coming in just to exploit the asylum system so they can get into the United States and then what? Profit? I don't know. But anyway, now, Attorney General William Barr said in a statement, quote, "The United States is a generous country, but is being completely overwhelmed by the burdens associated with apprehending and processing hundreds of thousands of aliens along the southern border." And no, I don't mean the aliens from Area 51, which that's a separate story. Now, here's the thing, right? So Barr says, look, our system, we're just overwhelmed. We got to do something about it. the thing is, you created that problem. You made it so that that it would end up this way. And by you, I mean Donald Trump. So now, first, Donald Trump puts in a zero-tolerance policy at the border that effectively caused the mass arrests of anyone trying to come to the border. Now, look, is there a crisis? Of course. There is a crisis. There was a lot more migrants coming through. And so, look, I understand that there is that part of it that is not Donald Trump's fault, that, of course, we have a spike in migrants coming across the border. It was the same thing during the Obama administration 2014 when you had large numbers of unaccompanied children that were coming through, and, of course, we had to do something for it. Now, the problem is that Donald Trump took an existing problem and then made it worse. And now is saying, well, now that we've made it worse, which we're not going to admit that we made it worse, now we're going to come up with a way to keep more migrants out. And so we've got to change the asylum rules. We've got to change the asylum laws. I mean, we just have to, because we have this big problem. Not only that. Okay, so again, this is another way Donald Trump created this problem. He cut off aid to Central American countries, like Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala. That made the conditions in these countries, which were already bad, even worse. So now you have even worse poverty. But the Trump administration, with these new rules, they've got a plan for that. They said the rule they will decrease forum shopping by economic migrants and those who seek to exploit our asylum system to obtain entry into the United States, while ensuring that no one is removed from the United States who is more likely than not to be tortured or persecuted on account of protected ground. So, hey, man, at least, at least if you're being murdered, or you could be murdered, then we might, let you stay, even though the Trump administration, and this was a big story a couple of months back, I think, where there were transgender migrants who were sent back to their countries and then ended up dying, being murdered. So congratulations on that. Hey, isn't that the kind of person who was persecuted that would be perfect for asylum? Weird. We ended up sending them back and they got killed anyway. Well, I guess if it's a transgender person, the Trump administration just does not care. I thought they were going to be great on LGBT, as Trump said. Not at all. Not at all. But look, economic migrants. And so this is the distinction that they're making, right? Economic migrants are people that are basically fleeing massive poverty. What the Trump administration is saying is, if you're poor, we don't want you. Well, I mean, they've said that before. They're like, well, yeah, obviously, if you're poor, you have nothing to offer. Really? Now, some of the most famous people came over without a cent in their pockets and ended up creating great businesses in America. So you don't know. You don't know. If you were poor, though, Trump is saying, I have no interest in you. You cannot come over, no matter what possible great ideas or how hard you work. Don't care. You're poor. We hate you. I mean, it's super gross. Now, in addition to ending asylum protections for most Central Americans, the rule also adds a new hurdle for asylum seekers as they go through the legal proceedings. It would require officers and immigration judges to apply this new bar on asylum eligibility during credible fear interviews. Credible fear interviews. Now, the rule applies only to those who enter or arrive in the U.S. on or soon after the rule's effective date, which is to be expected on Tuesday. Not much time. So here is just another way the administration is making it more difficult for asylum seekers to come to America. Again, if they've traveled through Mexico and are poor, they're ineligible. This is against international law. But more importantly, and this is the point, it's basically not going to allow children to claim asylum in the United States. Why? Because these kids don't know the rules, right? They don't know the rules. They don't understand that they can't, go through another country without claiming asylum or asking for asylum first. And of course, children, they don't have any money. So they could be called, economic migrants by the administration. And it's just another way to keep them out. I mean, this is really serving the white nationalist agenda. And why do I say that? It's because it's because of the claim that many on the right wing make of they're bringing in people from these Central American countries to replace us. And who's us? Well, you guys probably already know. And this, again, these actions are all a response to that white nationalist, that racist rhetoric. That's why they don't want people coming here. That's why they want to drastically reduce not just seeking asylum or illegal immigration. No, a lot of their moves also would restrict legal immigration. It's got nothing to do with our resources. We're spending $775 a day on each migrant to hold them in what? These camps, in these cages with a foil blanket. These camps also happen to be operated by private prison corporations in some instances. Yet these conditions are terrible. Why? Somebody's making money off of it. And not only that, but look, the cruelty is the point. They want conditions so bad that people won't want to come here. All the while, they continue to restrict legal immigration and have their friends in corporate America make a buck. It's nativism, it's white nationalism, it's racism, and it's all on display right here. Okay. So let's try to do one non-immigration story today. All right. Now, Senator Bernie Sanders hit back against former Vice President Joe Biden's criticisms of single payer. Now, Sunday, Sanders accused Biden of basically saying, parroting insurance and pharmaceutical industry talking points. Excuse me. Let me start that again. All right. Now, Senator Bernie Sanders hit back against former Vice President Joe Biden's criticisms of Medicare for All. Now, on Sunday, Senator Sanders accused Joe Biden of parroting insurance and pharmaceutical industry talking points after the former vice president basically came up with a bunch of lies about the supposedly high price tag of Medicare for All and suggested that the transition to a single-payer system would leave people without coverage. Oh, they're taking your coverage away. They're taking your coverage away. No, they're not. And of course, I'm going to explain why that's a lie. Now, this was during a campaign event in New Hampshire. Biden said he actually revealed his plan, which would be an expansion of the Affordable Care Act and adding a public option. Now, he said that a transition to that system, I should say incremental steps, wouldn't cost $3 trillion and it could be done quickly. Quote, I don't know why we'd get rid of what in fact is working and move to something totally new. And so there are differences. Totally new. Okay, so he says, Medicare for All, single payer, totally new system, and we'd have to scrap everything, and people would lose their coverage in the meantime, and there's no guarantee it would work because it costs $3 trillion. No. Here's the thing. It's not totally new. It's a complete and utter fabrication. No, we have this thing called Medicare. It already works. We already know how to pay for it. In fact, it is actually way more efficient than private insurance. The Sanders plan takes Medicare and gives it to everybody. I mean, that's it. That's the plan. It gives it to everybody, and it expands what Medicare already covers. So it actually does away with the need for supplemental private insurance. Now, you ask anybody that's on Medicare right now if they like it. Chances are they're going to say, well, yeah, it's not perfect, but yes, we love it. And it's a lot better than our for-profit private insurance. So now there's that. Now, as far as the statements on the ACA and how it's working, would you be talking about doing an expansion of the Affordable Care Act if it was working? I mean, you have millions of Americans right now that are both uninsured as well as underinsured. When you have a system like that, that means the system's broken. You have the incredibly high costs of private health insurance. You have, high copays and deductibles, and people that can't even afford to use their current coverage. Big problems, right? Now, look, a public option, I'm not saying a public option is horrible. No, a public option would be a small improvement to the system that we already have. Problem is, we should have had a public option when the ACA passed. That should have came with it. But establishment Democrats dropped it during this debate. Oh, well, no, we need to appeal to Republicans. So what we're going to do is we're going to have this plan that is entirely private insurance market-based. We're just going to give it all to the insurance companies. We're going to use the Willard Mitt Romney Massachusetts plan, and we should get all the conservative votes. And what happened? No conservative votes. No Republicans voted for this piece of legislation. And suddenly the Democratic Party, which was supposed to be progressive, they adopted the Republican plan, leaving the Republicans without anything but garbage. And so, look, while a public option would help some people, it doesn't solve the very basic problems in our healthcare system that are endemic to a for-profit system. Prices will remain high, costing taxpayers even more, because what a public option would do is that you sign up for that public insurance, and it still has to bear the costs of the market. So it's just going to cost taxpayers more. And look, here's the thing. Right now, did you know our current healthcare system has actually cost more than a single payer would? And it just gets worse in the future if we don't do anything. In about 10 years, we will spend about $5 trillion on our healthcare system. We're already at $3.2 trillion. That's our current spending. Medicare for All would actually save $2 trillion. Why? It's because, for one, they would rein in pharmaceutical companies. They would rein in healthcare spending prices in hospitals at the point of service. And not only that, but again, you wouldn't have to pay for advertising. Everything would be streamlined under one plan with a very, very low overhead. And they would be able to negotiate prices a lot more effectively. You do that, prices for healthcare will drop like a stone. Now, Bernie Sanders, finally getting to his response. He responded by calling Biden's attack, quote, absurd. Obviously, what Biden was doing is what the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical industry's Republicans do, ignoring the fact that people will save money in their health care because they will no longer have to pay for premiums or out-of-pocket expenses. They will no longer have high deductibles and high co-payments. The charge he's making is exactly what the Republicans are saying. So I love that because basically he's saying Joe Biden is a Republican. Is he wrong about that? No. Joe Biden is essentially a Republican that is okay with gay people. And that's what really a lot of these so-called moderate centrist Democrats are. They are Republicans. They are fiscally conservative and socially not really progressive, but socially, I guess, liberal. Again, they're okay with gay people and abortion and, all that stuff. But they're not progressive when it comes to social issues. Or, I'm sorry, economic issues, right? And so, and look, Biden himself is not even progressive or liberal on some social issues. For example, he was against busing during the civil rights era. That was the one thing that Kamala Harris just annihilated, massacred him on during the first debate. And not only that, but of course, basically he plagiarized several different plans, including the public option plan, which is basically the same as every other candidate. They all preserve private insurance. And the reason they do that, and that he's pushing for this, of course, is because of the donors. Biden, back in April, attended a fundraiser hosted by Independence Blue Cross CEO Dan Hilferty, just hours before launching his bid. So he's already getting paid by these health insurance corporations. He's raising money from bigwig CEOs of insurance, so of course he can't support Medicare for all. Doesn't believe in it. And the thing is that that's not going to play well in this primary. 2/3 of the Democratic primary voters want a single-payer health care plan. So now he's got to resort to lying about it. And we see that lie when he says things like, he doesn't want to start over. How many of you have had someone who lost to cancer or cancer yourself? No time, man. We cannot have a hiatus of 6 months, a year, 2, 3 to get something done. Again, complete and utter fabrication. Sanders' plan would take existing Medicare and expand it over 4 years to cover every single man, woman, and child. There's no gap in the coverage, right? It's a lie. And it's a way to scare people into accepting the status quo, which, by the way, is bad enough. Under the current system, if you have cancer and you don't have money to pay for it, and you don't have insurance, you basically are screwed. You will die. That's not the system that we should preserve. And so Sanders said one more thing here. He said, at a time when Donald Trump and the health insurance industry are lying every day about Medicare for all, I would hope that my fellow Democrats would not resort to misinformation about my legislation, which unfortunately they have been doing since 2016, when Chelsea Clinton came out and said basically the same thing. He also said it is preposterous to argue that as we expand Medicare for all, the people with cancer and other illnesses will not get the care they need. In fact, under Medicare for all, the good news is that we will end the horror of millions of people going into bankruptcy and financial distress simply because they need hospital care for serious conditions. We have a healthcare crisis in this country. Every day Americans die because they cannot afford the health care they desperately need, while the CEOs of insurance and drug companies get rich off their suffering. We cannot continue to tinker around the edges while 80 million Americans lack health insurance or are underinsured with high premiums, copays, and deductibles. That is the absolute truth. And this is why we have to have Medicare for all, and why we will accept absolutely no middle ground. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Hopefully the stories weren't, well, they were infuriating, but please like the stream. Please like what we're doing. Support us, patreon.com/TYTNation. For a cup of coffee, you can continue to support independent progressive media, especially in this era where they are trying to crush us and herd you towards corporate media. All right, guys. Thank you all. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you all tomorrow.